Title.wma, better known as the Windows XP welcome music, is iconic. It's a song that I'm sure most of us have heard before, though you probably didn't pay much attention to it when you were setting up your new XP computer those many years ago, especially if you didn't have the sound driver set up properly. But hearing just the first few seconds of it today can fill one with an immense sense of nostalgia. Memories of the early 2000s, the excitement, or at least a sense of curiosity that you felt when you finally got your new computer all set up, or just finished upgrading to XP. Memories of a simpler time, and for some, your childhood. But it also represents a new era for the Windows operating system. One that was filled with new possibilities, a fresh new user interface, a more stable file system, a Windows that seemed more personal and intuitive. The sky was literally the limit for Windows XP, and even 7 years after its end of support, it refuses to completely die off, and it remains one of the most critically acclaimed computer operating systems of all time. Look, I know what some of you are thinking. Really? A whole video about a 5-minute song that most people probably didn't even listen to entirely? But there's a lot more to this seemingly simple piece of music than you might think. Even if you know the song's name, and know that it played during the final portion of Windows XP's installation, you probably don't know its complete origin story. Because Windows XP was far from the first time this song was ever used. In fact, it was composed when XP didn't exist, even in development build form. That's because this piece of music is 25 years old. And for most of that time, the identity of the song's creator wasn't fully known. It remained a sort of internet mystery for many years. Countless forum threads and blog posts tried to figure out where the song came from and who was behind it. It's a mystery that wasn't completely solved until years after Windows XP's release. So, who's the person, or people, behind this iconic track? What was it initially created for? And how did it find its way into Windows XP? Let's find out. I'm Michael MJD, and this is the full story of Title.wma. We're going to start off by booting up Windows XP. I know I just said that it wasn't the first time the song was used, but it's easily the most popular usage of it, and is what most people think of when they hear the song. Windows XP was released in the fall of 2001, and it marked a drastic shift in Microsoft's product strategy by combining the consumer and professional releases of Windows into a single release with different editions. Microsoft implemented many new user interface elements that were designed to make Windows XP more welcoming to home users. A perfect example of this is the welcome screen, the UI to switch between user accounts that was used by default in the home release of XP. But Microsoft even made some changes to the installation process, redesigning it to fit in better with XP's design language. But the third and final portion of the setup is what we're going to focus on. It's known as the out-of-box experience, or OOBE. It's where you configure automatic updates, register your copy of Windows, and create user accounts for the first time. XP's predecessor, Windows ME, also included an out-of-box experience that had similar functionality. Microsoft could have just redesigned this interface for XP and left it at that, but they went the extra mile and included a piece of background music that would play as you were going through the setup. And it was a nice touch, for the people that could actually hear it. Because if you didn't have your sound drivers configured properly, or just didn't have a set of speakers plugged in, you weren't going to be able to even tell that there was background music. Of course, people discovered the inclusion of the music one way or another. The song was uploaded to YouTube as early as April of 2007, and some users created tutorials showing you where the file was located on your system. It's stored in C Windows System32 OOBE images, and the name of the file is Title.wma. It's 2.5 megabytes in size and has a runtime of almost 5.5 minutes. But there's no metadata that identifies the name of the author, year of creation, or the official title. The artist is simply listed as Microsoft and the title as Windows Welcome Music. But as we'll discuss later on, this isn't the original name of the song. The nature of this storage location, and the fact that some users never got the chance to hear the music during the out-of-box experience, led many to refer to the song as the Hidden Windows XP music, or the Hidden Windows song, even though it wasn't ever hidden in the first place.
Right now we're looking at evil Homer's desktop, and he says that he wants to show us some hidden music inside of Windows XP. OOBE folder? Gotcha. Well, it's not exactly hidden music, it's just where you can find it. This is the XP setup music.
Due to the popularity and high usage share of Windows XP, the song gradually came to be known as the Windows XP welcome music, or by its file name, Title.wma. But despite what some old forum posts and wikis might tell you, it wasn't created for and used exclusively in Windows XP. So when did it make its first appearance? That would be a whole 5 years prior, in the 1996 release of Microsoft's Internet Explorer Starter Kit. Yeah, I bet you didn't see that one coming. I did a video on this in late 2020 if you want to hear more about it, but to give you the gist of it, this kit contains all sorts of information about Internet Explorer and the World Wide Web. How it worked, what you needed to get online, it even defines some web terminology. It was designed for users who knew very little, or perhaps nothing, about the web, and what we know as Windows XP's welcome music plays in the background as you're exploring the program. And yes, this was the very first time this song was used, but it's not the only place that it made an appearance before Windows XP. If we travel a couple of years into the future to 1998, we'll see another implementation of it in that year's release of Microsoft Encarta Virtual Globe. When you think of Encarta, you probably think of the encyclopedia. However, the name was used in a couple of other products like Encarta Dictionary and Encarta World Atlas. Virtual Globe is a rebranding of World Atlas and includes, well, a World Atlas. You can view the Earth, search for a specific place, there's even a game included called Name That Place. The mode we're interested in is the World Flight. You've got a list of places to choose from, and when you select one, the program will launch into a flyover interface, and the music that plays in the background will sound pretty familiar to you. It's not a one-to-one copy of the original song, but the first couple of seconds bear a very close resemblance to it. The identity of Title.wma's creator was mistaken for many years. Even today, if you Google who created the Windows XP welcome music, you'll get the wrong name. Bill Brown is one of the two names that you'll see very frequently in old forum threads where somebody asked who the name of the creator is, and it's easy to see why. Bill Brown actually composed music for Windows XP. He's the guy behind both the tour theme and the startup and shutdown sounds. This is likely why his name comes up if you search for the creator of the welcome music. XP's startup sound has been referred to as the welcome sound before. I mean, it literally says welcome as the sound plays, so it could be that whoever answered this Quora post thought that the asker meant the welcome sound instead of the welcome music. And it's not that far-fetched to assume that the guy behind most of Windows XP's music also composed Title.wma. But this isn't true. Keep in mind that the song was composed years before XP was even a thing. The other supposed creator of the song is Brian Eno. He also worked with Microsoft in the past and composed Windows 95's startup sound. Its official name is the Microsoft sound, and it's just as, or arguably more iconic than XP's welcome music. It's a track that was heard by millions of people every day, every time they logged into Windows 95. Pretty ironic for a sound that was created on a Macintosh computer. Yeah, in a 2011 interview, Brian was asked if he composed the song on a PC, and he replied, "No, I wrote it on a Mac. I've never used a PC in my life. I don't like them." However, Brian Eno didn't work on Windows XP's music at all, and the theory of him being the man behind Title.wma seems to be based on the simple fact that he worked with Microsoft before, and that some people thought the music sounded Brian Eno-esque. The last supposed creator of the song that I want to talk about is actually a group of people, the Australian pop duo Savage Garden. They had their fair share of #1 hit singles like Truly Madly Deeply, I Knew I Loved You, and I Want You. In 1997, they released a song called 1,000 Words. It wasn't a hit single, the song isn't even mentioned on the group's Wikipedia page. However, the first 25 seconds of it sound very familiar to Windows XP's welcome music. Unfortunately, I can't play the song here for obvious reasons, but if you look it up and give it a listen, I guarantee you'll agree with me. This similarity caused many people to believe that Title.wma was an instrumental version of 1,000 Words, and when forum threads popped up with curious users trying to figure out the song's creator, more than a few replied with Savage Garden, and used 1,000 Words as evidence. And again, this isn't that far-fetched, it's very easy to see why people came to this conclusion. What are the odds of a pop duo releasing a song with an almost identical melody to the welcome music used in Windows XP 4 years later, and there not being any sort of correlation between the duo and Microsoft? Well, during my research for this video, I wasn't able to find any link between the band and Microsoft. And keep in mind that Title.wma made its first appearance in the Internet Explorer Starter Kit an entire year prior to the release of 1,000 Words, and was in its original form, the same form that we heard in XP. If I had to speculate, I would say that the duo heard the song and used it as inspiration to write one of their own, or maybe they actually came up with the melody by themselves and the whole thing is just a coincidence. Regardless, Savage Garden is not the creator of Title.wma. So who is? It's a question that wouldn't be fully answered until the year 2011, when a seemingly unsuspecting piece of music was uploaded to SoundCloud. And with that upload, the true creator of XP's welcome music was finally realized. The description reads, composed, produced, and performed by Stan LePard in 1996. That's a name that I haven't mentioned up until this point, and it wasn't even a contender in all of those forum threads and blog posts. But Stan LePard was the true creator of Title.wma, which actually isn't the song's original name. You probably noticed the Windows 98 in the title, so let me explain that. The second part of the description says, used in the home version of Windows 98 for the setup music, also used in Windows XP, Internet Explorer Starter Kit 3, and Encarta Virtual Globe 1998. Now, Windows 98 didn't have a home edition, as it was the home version of Windows during its time. NT 4.0 was the version geared towards professional and business use, and I've never heard this song anywhere in Windows 98. There are a few possible explanations for this though. In a post on Quora, a former Microsoft employee who worked on XP responded to a question about the welcome music and said, "As I recall it, the group program manager over our team had that song lying around from an earlier project that it had been cut from. I think it may have been a version of IE or a Windows prototype. He had the song commissioned for Microsoft during the 1990s. Now this lines up with our timeline. However, the song wasn't cut from the Internet Explorer Starter Kit. It's certainly possible that it was initially intended to appear somewhere in Windows 98 though, and that could be what Microsoft told Stan when they commissioned him to create the song. It's also possible that the song was going to be in a version of Windows like Codename Nashville, which was never finished, or Stan simply meant to say the home edition of XP instead of 98. But everything else is correct, and he confirms in a comment that it was originally used in the Internet Explorer Starter Kit, and that the song has no relation to the Savage Garden song. Now, if you go to the SoundCloud page and listen to the song today, it will sound a bit different than what you're used to. That's because Stan created a 2020 remix version of the song and replaced the original audio file, because SoundCloud lets you do that. Later on, he uploaded the original track as another song on his SoundCloud page. Though this song is far from the only piece of music that Stan composed for Microsoft. He also worked on Encarta Virtual Globe and Microsoft Flight Simulator, and he even created music for video games, including Halo 3, Halo Reach, Halo 3 ODST, Destiny, Age of Empires 3, Guild Wars 2, Hexic, Plants vs. Zombies, the list goes on. But I would venture to say that Title.wma is one of the most, if not the most, popular piece of music that Stan wrote, due to the extremely high usage share that XP used to have, and the fact that the song has been uploaded to YouTube, where it's accumulated millions of views across multiple videos. But if the post on Quora that I mentioned earlier is completely accurate, the music wasn't initially intended to be included in Windows XP at all, but was instead added at the last minute. Relatively late in the game, it became part of the OOBE experience, and though some people didn't like it, there were a few on the team responsible for Windows' overall look and feel that I understand weren't elated by it being a change they hadn't approved. Most Windows team members, senior management, and testers really liked it, and it lived on through release to become a bit of an FAQ. So that's the story of Title.wma. The story of a song that took years for its actual creator to be recognized. No matter if you've heard the song only once, or if you've listened to it so many times that you know every note by heart, in its own way, even though it wasn't ever sold in a music store, or made available for purchase through iTunes, never made it to the Hot 100, and never put on Spotify, Title.wma is one of the most purchased pieces of music of all time, even if a large number of people didn't even know that they had a copy of it. And I think we can all agree, that's a pretty impressive accomplishment. That's all for today's video. I want to thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like and get subscribed, and as always, I will see you all in the next video.